happened to Tyson was he lost his license. It was revoked by Nevada State Athletic Commission. He was fined $3 million plus
but all
legal
civil
fees.
stuff.
Yes. So I guess again we keep talking about victim, and Holyfield didn't want to do anything.
Okay.
Obviously, this goes above and beyond like a dirty punch or something. Like that. This is not like, hey, a sucker punch.
This goes back to what we're saying. So, extracurricular violence. Obviously, boxing is nothing but violence, right? But even outside the rules of boxing, you've talked about. There's headbutts.
Sure.
There's elbows and
like
just low blows,
punches,
like
kidney punch, rabbit punches.
But that's still a part of boxing,
right?
Biting someone's ear off isn't.
No.
So didn't you tell me, though, in the research, like in terms of violating his probation or parole,
sure,
that they didn't because that incident occurred in the ring as opposed to outside the ring?
Yeah, for Vegas. Some of the research that I saw says that, had this fight happen in Chicago or Illinois, the laws are different, so he would have violated the parole then. But Vegas, I guess, has more relaxed rules.
Vegas and Nevada.
So, they never did anything with it. I would say, though, you've got, that's an aggravated battery as far, you look in Orlando, it's like, or state of Florida.
That's permanent disfigurement.
Sure it is.
Top of his ear is gone. But I lost my train of thought. That was just getting back to, again, that is above and beyond, right? Of the normal course of boxing. But again, there's no doubt in my mind if the criminal justice system wanted to step in and charge him, that Evander Holyfield would have said, I don't want to press charges.
No, and obviously he was disqualified from that fight. So Tyson lost, and apparently that was the first time somebody was disqualified in 50 years. And so Tyson, I guess, obviously he's changed as a person. He's kind of evolved over time, and at a certain point, if you read enough articles and stuff, he became actually really good friends with Holyfield. I think they're actually like pretty tight now. And I think that kind of goes with, there's a competitive nature in sports. There's obviously biting somebody's ear off is not necessarily competitive nature. That's a little aggressive, but you see that a lot of times. It's like people fight and then they, they talk it out and then they're okay. And I think a lot of that's kind of athletics. I think there's a aggressive competitive nature. So I think that's why we don't see as many like, hey, we're going to press charges. You know what I'm saying?
Biting someone's ear off, though, or part of the ear.
Yeah.
But I get it.
That's not good.
I did come across something while you were talking. It
just
popped up in my papers here that I didn't highlight earlier, in the Malice at the Palace, that the police in Auburn Hills, they wanted to physically arrest Ron Artest. So Ron Artest, I told you, was the player that was laying on the scores table.
Let's arrest him.
And he's the one that went into the crowd first.
Right.
They wanted to physically arrest him after the game.
Right.
The Pacers put him on the team bus and wouldn't let him off, and they just took off. They got the hell out of there. But ultimately,
could you imagine getting that call?
Here's the other thing too, and we've dealt with this. Like, we've had cases as police officers and detectives where you could technically make a physical arrest right there. But it behooves you not to, for a variety of circumstances, to let the person go, and then you document the things you need to do, and then after the fact, you can go get an arrest warrant.
In this case, they're separated.
Correct.
It's not ongoing anymore. They shouldn't be running into each other anymore. So it's not like you can say, hey, somebody was in immediate danger or anything like that.
But they wanted to make a physical arrest, but they couldn't do it. So
you get off that bus. No, like, I'm telling you right now, get off that bus. No.
But that was an interesting one.
Would you please get off the bus? No.
Now, here's another one. I got to put my reading glasses on.
Put your glasses on,
It's
man.
freaking old.
I got mine right here.
Here's one that I think a lot of people remember because it only happened not too long ago. So where's my notes at?
Which one?
Myles Garrett, when he, the defensive end for Pittsburgh Steelers, for the Cleveland Browns, ripped off the helmet of Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph. So it was, when was this? I lost my notes. I hate when this happens.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sound like I lost you.
I want to say it was 20. Yeah, here it is. There, November 14th, 2019. So a few years ago, Myles Garrett was a rusher again. Gets in there with Mason Rudolph's quarterback, and you've all seen it again. You Googling to see this one too?
Yeah.
Ends up ripping off Mason Rudolph's helmet, the quarterback, and swings it at him, which is just crazy.
Yeah, I do remember this off the top of my head.
Could have been really bad.
Yeah.
It was kind of a little bit of a glancing blow on Mason Rudolph, but I mean,
remember
you
this,
could
yeah.
literally,
Yes.
you could kill someone. I mean, that is swinging a deadly weapon. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Right.
Okay. Ultimately, what happens is there's no criminal intervention. Okay, the criminal justice system doesn't get involved. Myles Garrett is suspended indefinitely. Okay. The NFL ended up reinstating him, but ultimately he missed 6 games. It cost him $1.2 million in lost salary. The NFL fined him a little over $45,000. Some other players were fined. The teams were fined. Mason Rudolph was eventually fined $50,000. He never got suspended. And they've since, Mason Rudolph and Myles Garrett have since, to your point, you just talked about, they've shook hands and they've let it go and they've moved on. But this goes to the heart of swinging a football helmet. It's your own opponent's helmet, so he's not wearing a helmet.
Sure.
It's his helmet at his head is above and beyond, right? What would normally happen in a football, let's say, melee or fight.
No reason for it.
So that was one where I think, I think the powers to be in law enforcement and the attorneys and criminal justice probably thought really hard about it. Now, the NFL has a whole legal department, obviously. They have a lot of former law enforcement officers. Right. So there was probably a lot of roundtable. And again, that's one, too. You would not make a physical arrest for that. But that's something that after a week or two of looking at it and talking to people, you could consider it. Again, I don't think Mason Rudolph would have ever pressed charges at the end of the day. But that's something, again, above and beyond, the normal punches and throwing, face masks down, because it could. And I'll say this too. Let's say he connects with him, like really connects with him, right on the side of the head,
yeah,
and fractures his skull or gives him a brain bleed or something really serious,
right?
Then I think the outcome would have been different. I do believe that.
Sure. Again, it's basically aggravated battery. It's with that's a deadly weapon. You hit somebody in the head, and it happens at times. You see people get into bar fights, and then, you throw one punch, and the dude falls back and hits his head, and the next thing you know, they're dead, and you're like, that's not what you meant, but you did it.
Yeah. And we've seen, and I've charged it before, where you're kind of in a bar fight where someone punches a person, and it's not even punch. Let's say pushes someone. It's not even a bad push, but it's technically battery. Yep. They fall back and crack their skull. You end up charging them with felony battery.
Yeah.
You know? So, but yeah, and listen, Myles Garrett lost his mind there. And again, that's the thing with sports. So it's hard.
Did you say charges were ever filed?
No, no charges were ever filed. I'm sure there was roundtables about it. He lost a lot civilly. Again, $1.2 million in pay. He's fined $45,000 on top of it. His reputation took a hit, but he's come back. And again, those two have met. They've shook hands.
Right.
But again, man, that was crazy when it happened, because swinging a helmet, and it's not like you take your helmet off and you're swinging a helmet of someone that has a helmet on. It's his helmet, so he doesesn't even have any protection over his head.
Who was the guy? He went running back after him. If you watch, I just watched the video.
Yeah, and Maurice Pouncey, the offensive lineman, tried to intervene in a lot of.
Give me my helmet back.
There was some fines there as well, but that's one of those crazy ones. Again, I do think when above and beyond, law enforcement didn't get involved. Absolutely. Again, I do think though, if the connection was a clean, hard connection, and Mason Rudolph had gotten seriously injured, I think law enforcement or the criminal justice system may have. I'm not saying would have. It would have been it would have been closer for them to get involved. Sure.
Severity of injuries is something that you look at a lot.
Absolutely. I really do. So that was interesting. And so during my research, the one sport, and this isn't going to really shock anyone, the one sport, and again, if we miss some sports where someone was charged, I get it. Not an encyclopedia here. Go ahead and let us know if you want. But the one sport during my research where it just seems like good amount of people have been charged is hockey. So hockey, and here's the crazy thing with hockey is there's a fighting culture of hockey, especially in the NHL. Sure. Now, they're doing a good job, the powers to be, legislating it out of junior hockey, college hockey, all that stuff. Even the NHL to an extent, right? I don't think you'll ever really get rid of it. But I came across this one case, and from my research, it's the first trial, the nation's first trial. I definitely know it's the nation's first trial of a hockey player.
Okay.
For an incident that occurred during a game.
Right.
So it was 1975. Okay. I was 3. Oh, you weren't.
What time? What date?
I didn't come across the date. So that's,
I was either there.
So
I was either
old.
here or not.
Yeah, I mean it's hockey season. So hockey season, it's the wintertime. So
yeah. So I was born March.
So 1975, Boston Bruin Dave Forbes. Okay. He was charged with aggravated assault for striking Henry Bucha of the Minnesota North Stars in the eye with his stick after the two left the penalty box for fighting. So they had already fought. They're both in the penalty box.
That's kind of a cheap shot.
It's up
there.
in Minnesota.
Right.
So we're talking about the state of Minnesota. Comes out of the box. He hits him with the eye, with a stick, right? So now he ends up, again, I said it was the nation's first trial of a hockey player for conduct during a game. So it's the first one charged, again, charged with aggravated assault. Now this goes to what we talked about a few episodes ago about jurors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
It was a hung jury.
I knew what I was talking about.
Okay, there was 12 jurors, hung jury.
Right.
When they polled the jury, that's what we're talking
That's
about.
what we're talking about.
10 of the jurors wanted to convict him.
Okay.
2 voted for acquittal. Okay, so then they didn't retry it.
They were the
It
holdouts.
just went away. They didn't retry it, and that's normal. That happens a lot. But then the league ended up giving Forbes, I think 10 games suspension. I mean, whatever. But the one thing is funny when researching this, the prosecutor in the case, and he's since passed away, Gary Fockney, I believe he pronounces it, or Flockney. He basically did an interview and he said, basically, I'm the only prosecutor in the world that can't get a conviction when a guy commits assault in front of 18,000 people live.
How many witnesses do you have for trial?
Yeah. So that was the first one, right? So in 75, and
yeah, I wonder what the argument was. Like, what's the argument there that you were able to convince 2 jurors? I'm sure they had videotape of it. It's like, here you go.
I think it's the part where the legal system should not get involved in the course of something that happens in a sporting event. That's probably what the argument was. Here's the thing. When you use, and this is the thing that I wouldn't say surprised me about Myles Garrett, but thought would play a bigger role in Myles Garrett. Because the one thing with hockey, and I'm going to get to a couple other hockey ones here, is the stick, man. Yeah. Use that stick as a weapon.
You have a deadly weapon in your
where
hand.
It's not an accident, like an accidental high sticking, but you stick someone, that's a weapon. That seems to perk everyone up. So we just saw the one that I just told you about, where Dave Forbes was charged, went to trial, but he was a hung jury, and so it didn't get retried. Here's a couple of other incidents.
Could you imagine? Hey, let's try that again. That sounds like a good idea.
Here's another one. Todd Bertuzzi sucker punch a guy, player Steve Moore from behind. So this is a hockey, and let me set it up. So Colorado Avalanche and this is 2004.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's more recent.
2004. So February 2004. Okay. So the Colorado Avalanche forward Steve Moore, they were kind of after him, okay, because he had laid a really hard hit on Vancouver Canucks captain Marcus Noslin, okay? So a real hard hit in February of 2004.
Right.
He was in a vulnerable position. Like they felt the hit shouldn't have been made. He suffered a concussion on the play, knocked him out of the lineup, missed 3 games.
This guy's a marked
So
guy.
they were pissed. They were pissed at
Yeah.
Steve Moore, right?
Yeah.
They were pissed at him. So on March 8th, they're playing again. So roughly a month later, February, March 8th, 3 weeks later.
Right.
Okay. And so now he's a marked guy, right?
Yeah.
You know they're going after him, especially in hockey, and it's no doubt about it. So it's a lopsided game. Todd Bertuzzi he was kind of stalking Moore, right? Before you could just tell they were after him. He ends up sucker punching Steve Moore from behind. Mm-hmm. So I think that played into it too. It wasn't a straight up fight. He hits him from behind. Hits Steve Moore behind. Moore tumbles to the ice, obviously knocks him out. His full weight hits the ice. And then a bunch of people pile on him, right? Because they wanted to get this guy.
Yeah.
He stretchered off the ice with 3 broken vertebrae. Oh, he never played again.
Oh.
So it's one of those things. And don't look it up, Brian. There's video of that as well. There's video of that.
So they broke his back.
Yeah, his vertebrae. Yeah. So basically, Bertuzzi, the one that sucker punched him from behind, was suspended for the remainder of the season, plus 7 playoff games. So 20 total games. He gets